In this video, I'll be sharing with you the secret to building a 50 or even 100K per month coaching or consulting business by leveraging appointment setters. I'll be walking you through exactly how you can source your best setter, how you can actually interview them so that you can find the best talent, and the actual onboarding process that you can deploy in order for them to ramp up to speed and maximize your effectiveness right out of the gate. Now, who is this for? If you're a coach or a consultant or agency and you're selling a higher ticket offer, let's say it's $5,000 or above, then you're in the right place. In fact, if that's you, this strategy will very likely generate you between 15 to even 25x return on your overall investment. That being said, this will only work if you've already validated your offer. If you've never actually closed any clients or you essentially have no lead flow, this strategy is not going to work for you. But let's say you're already doing 10K per month and up, and you're looking to scale to the 50, even 100K per month level, then this is actually a strategy that has a high degree of success. And how do we know this? Well, we were able to scale our business over 50K per month just by deploying this tactic. And you can actually see one of our screenshots here of our Stripe. We don't only collect revenue via Stripe, we also get wire transfers and PayPal, so it's a little bit incomplete, but we've been able to have months and months and months consecutively at this level. So let me actually dive into the meat and bones. What even is a setter? Well, a setter is someone who actually helps you schedule meetings and fill the calendar. And obviously, having a huge pipeline is gonna be the lifeblood of your business. But the problem is, if you as a CEO are spending all of your waking hours filling the calendar with prospects, you probably don't have the time to do other incredibly important things, such as working on the product or working with client fulfillment or more strategic things such as hiring or improving the actual product itself. So by being able to delegate and automate the entire process of meeting booking, you can win back your time, work on the business, and the lifeblood of your business, which is meeting generation, is fully taken care of. If anything, it'll be even better than it was before. So what are the sample use cases that you can actually execute on in order to utilize a setter to push your business to 30, 50, 100K per month? Well, let me list off a couple to you, right? One of the things you can do is follow up with all of the people who are engaging inside your content, whether it be on Twitter or Instagram or Facebook. I'm sure you've noticed that whenever you're sharing content or stories, there's always people who engage with that content, or maybe they even follow you. Every single time that happens, you need to be DMing them, because getting them to actually have a conversation with you is what's gonna get them to book a call. Just them seeing your content and them engaging with it doesn't mean that they're ever gonna actually just book on their own. In fact, most prospects are very passive, right? For example, right, I have a YouTube channel. I get thousands of views every single week, yet only a small percentage of them actually book, despite a lot of these people really liking my content. When I'm proactive and I actually reach out them directly on social media and I talk about how they enjoyed my videos, and I'm able to actually progress the conversation, figure out their issues, and then proactively get them to book, it works significantly better. Here's a couple examples, right? We have Chad here, one of my clients. He more or less says, hey, I saw some of your content, yet for whatever reason, he did not book a call with me, so we now actually have to have a bit of a back and forth DM conversation, and then eventually he does become a client, he eventually does start closing deals with our help, and he eventually does pretty much make money on our engagement incredibly quickly. Other examples, right? Julie, same thing, saw a bunch of content, never booked a call. We had to DM her before we were able to successfully book her into a call. Same thing with Elaine, saw our content, never booked a call. We needed to DM them, engage them directly, and get them to actually progress to the next step. Now, the next use case is if you just wanted to run your cold outreach, right? Let's say you sent out 50 or 100 messages every single day on social media, but of course, as soon as the person replies, you need to be able to then respond and get them to actually book a call. A setter can do that. Now, what if you run paid ads? How could setters help you with paid ads? Well, imagine if you are generating 100 leads every single week, but you're relying on all of these people to just book on their own because they saw some VSL or downloaded some ebook of yours. That's incredibly inefficient. Instead, if you're collecting their phone numbers or if you're collecting their social media URLs, having a setter actually proactively hit them up on the phone and be like, hey, I noticed that you joined my Facebook group. Hey, I noticed you opted into the ad. I noticed that you downloaded the ebook. I noticed that you checked out our video. What's your story? Can we jump on a call, right? You're gonna be able to immediately generate 30 to 50% more calls just by being proactive than if you didn't at all. And finally, a good setter not only can book meetings, but they can even do the initial 15-minute discovery call for you so that you could triage, qualify, disqualify, and save your closers a ton of time. And case in point, we actually have 3 setters in our team right now running on all those different use cases that I just talked about. And our main setter in particular is generating between 10 to 20 calls booked every single week. You can actually see our tracking here. And the craziest thing is we do have a lot of content. We do have a Facebook group. We do have a YouTube channel. But despite that, all the content only really gets us between 3 to 5 bookings every single week if we're talking about people who just auto book by finding a calendar link. So over 80% of our meetings actually come from a setter being hyper proactive. So I get it, right? You're probably thinking, Lloyd, okay, setters sound great, but how do I actually deploy this? And that's a really good question. And you definitely want to deploy this correctly, because when you don't, you'll actually waste a ton of time and money. Not just the money that you'd be paying your setter in terms of their compensation, but think about all the time that you're gonna have to spend when you're interviewing, when you're actually trying to find the right setters. Think about all the wasted leads that you're gonna be probably just lighting on fire if you give it to a setter who just cannot actually communicate to prospects effectively. These are all hidden ways that you could lose a ton of money. So I would urge you to avoid these particular mistakes, right? First, hiring VAs is a mistake. VAs are not setters. Setters are people who actually have sales experience. VAs are just people who can follow very, very mundane, repetitive tasks and read instructions and execute, right? But VAs, they don't have the actual sales skills that they're going to need in order to be able to convince at scale people to actually book a call with you, because that requires objection handling skills, that requires listening skills. It's a lot more than what a VA can typically do. The next thing is, people just oftentimes don't have any processes or systems. They'll hire someone, and then maybe the setter on your first day will ask, okay, I'm really excited to be working with you, but how do I do my job? And if your answer is like, I don't really know, you're gonna have to figure it out on your own, your setter's gonna fail. So you need the SOPs, you need the systems, you need the scripts, you need all the different supporting material and workflows that will allow your setter to actually succeed. The next mistake that people often make is they just don't have any sort of incentive structure that makes it motivating for a setter to perform well. For example, not having a base. If you don't have a base, your setter is going to feel very panicked throughout the entire experience, right? A closer could potentially make $10,000 a month because it's such a high upside role. They're making 10, 15, 20% on the entire close. So yes, maybe you're not paying them a base at all necessarily, but the upside that they have offsets the risk. Whereas with a setter, the commissions are a little bit lower, and because the upside isn't as high, if you don't have at least a base protecting them, they're gonna feel very, very scared, and they're potentially gonna try to find other jobs on the side, which will take away from their ability to work with you effectively, right? So just pay them a small base, which locks them in, and then give them a really good commission structure so that they feel very incentivized to earn as much as they possibly can and overperform. The next thing is not having sufficient lead flow. A lot of people make this mistake of thinking that an appointment setter, I'll bring them on and they can just do pretty much 8 hours a day of cold outreach. Now, if you're selling a very, very, very high ticket offer, such as like enterprise software, and the LTV is like $40,000, then maybe that'll work, right? Maybe your setters, even if they only book 5 meetings a week, will make enough commission because it's such a high price point. But most of the time, if you're doing just pure cold outreach, they're gonna be booking very few amount of meetings because people are hyper skeptical when it comes to cold outreach. And because there's not that many meetings being booked, they're probably not gonna make much commission, and then they're just gonna quit. So I would highly recommend that if you do wanna bring on a setter, that you have enough lead flow that they can talk to warmer leads, right? For example, you have ads coming in so that your setters are just talking to people who've opted into your ads, or you have content, Instagram content, YouTube content, Facebook group content, and now your setters can just DM people who have already been engaging with your content, and it's a bit of a warmer conversation, which means they'll have more meetings being booked, which means even if they're not making that much commission per deal, there's enough conversations that they'll ultimately be able to make good money, right? So you have to consider, can you support the setter and feed them with enough leads? So those are some of the mistakes that people oftentimes make. Now, the next thing that I want to talk about is the hiring funnel. How do you actually hire a setter, and what are the steps? Well, to get one qualified setter, you're going to need to, generally speaking, get 100 applications coming in. Out of those 100 applications, normally 15 will be worthy of getting a first round interview. And then of those, around 5 to 7 will actually be good enough that you move them to the second round interview. By the way, I'll get into what the interviews look like a little bit later in this video. But then after you do the second round interviews, typically you'll have 2 to 3 people who stand out, and you'll think to yourself, you know what, they're pretty solid, I would want to test them out. Let's put them on a little bit of a trial period. And then after that, 1 will typically make the final cut. So 100 applications and many, many interviews before you can actually get that one setter. If you skimp on this, if you take a shortcut on this, you'll typically just hire the wrong person, and then it'll ultimately cost you more money down the line. Now, I want to go through all the different steps that you can take in order to start finding and even hiring the best setters out there. So the first step is that you want to start building out your systems and your processes. I alluded to this earlier, but you need to have this before you even hire your setter. So some of these things that I would be referencing would be buyer persona maps. So here's a couple examples of the ones that I built for my setting team, right? So first off, we want to be able to show them and teach them about our product. Anyone who's running sales for our business needs to be an expert in what it is that we're selling and who we're selling to. So we have all of these SOPs and really well documented video instructions that talk about who we sell to and what they're looking for and who our competitors are and the way in which our offers actually add value. And then we also have all of our conversation scripts and trees. And the key thing here is, especially if you're running DMs or if you're having cold calls, these conversations are not linear. They are going to reflect, they're not linear. They actually will change depending on the way in which your prospects respond to you, right? So you need to have almost like a tree, a set of if-then statements which allow your setters to be able to adjust based on the situation. So we've built all of this out so that it's incredibly easy for our setters to actually succeed when they're talking to people and maximize the rate at which they can book people into meetings. And then we also want to be able to have really good tracking and really good visibility. And this way it allows us to be able to manage them and see the results and give them feedback over time. We want to be able to actually see the state of their pipeline and look at all the different people that they're talking to at any given point in time so that they can track their own process and be able to follow up when they need to follow up. All of these things you need to have set up before you actually even start hiring for your setter. Now, once you've built out these initial systems, then you want to start sourcing applications and finding candidates. So how do I typically do this? Well, first off, understand the criteria in which we are looking for in regards to a setter. Normally, I'm looking for people who've been in sales for at least 3 years. I'll probably accept 2 years. But regardless, they need to have a track record of hitting quota. If they've had sales jobs in the past, but they consistently failed at their KPIs, you're probably not going to want to hire them despite their experience, right? Now, other things that I'm looking for qualitatively is, do they have ambitions? Do they one day want to become a closer or a sales manager? Because I want to see that hustle. I want to see that drive. Now, if you're selling in English, they should be fluent in English. If you're selling in French, they should be fluent in French. That's kind of a given, right? But the other thing that I like to also juggle is that they typically live in a country where the cost of living is lower. And that means I'm able to generate arbitrage. I'm able to actually pay them wages, which for them are still very good, but relative to like an American or a Canadian or a European is on the low side. And that way we can obviously save some money. So countries that I've really seen great experiences with is South Africa, because not only are they totally fluent in English, and the people there are very well educated, very smart, but they also live in a country which has just like 20% of the cost of living. So I'm able to really take advantage of that arbitrage. Now, where do I hire from? So I'll share with you a couple of the sources that I really like. One of the places that I think are great is LinkedIn. LinkedIn has talent from all around the world, and it's a really great place to hire. I actually think that it's the best place to find really great talent. But for me, I have a little bit of a hack because my business is literally helping companies install appointment setters and build out these highly effective appointment setting machines. So I actually have a community on Facebook of over 3,000 people, and I oftentimes hire out of my community because they already trust me, and I know that they've been well trained because I've trained them myself. And this is oftentimes where I'm also hiring talent for my clients who are asking us for setters. So this is a little bit of a cheat code for me, but hey, I'll take it. Now, the other thing that I'd say is you want to be able to manage your pipeline, right? Because if you have 100 applications coming in and you got to do all these interviews, then obviously you want to make sure that everything is super well organized. So I do have essentially a CRM to manage my recruiting pipeline, and I use Workable in this case. Now, once you get the candidates to apply, what do you then do? So I do multiple rounds of interviews. The first round of interviews is a behavioral interview. So I'm gonna keep this like fairly quick, 15 minutes at most, and I'm just generally trying to get a sense of their personality, whether they're a culture fit, whether or not they have a reason to join, whether or not they actually enjoy sales. Do they have a history of beating quota? Do they have the correct logistics, right? Can they work in the time zone I'm asking for? Do they have good access to internet and power and utilities and all those? Do they have good access to electricity and internet and all those things? Are their salary expectations match with what the role can provide, right? So all of these higher level things. That being said, once they pass this, are they punctual and articulate and are able to explain themselves? Now, once they pass these basic things, the next thing that we want to do is then put them into a bit more of a rigorous skill testing interview. And what I normally do here is a role play interview. And the role play interview is really cool because we essentially give them a scenario as a salesperson, and then they try to pitch our hiring manager who's running the interview on the product, right? So we'll pretty much be able to figure out, are they good at overcoming objections? Are they good at pitching? Are they good at asking questions to qualify and disqualify? Do they have good poise on the phone when they're under pressure, right? So all of these things that we're obviously looking for with any salesperson, we're able to then pick apart right then and there on the role play. And the cool thing about the role play is that it also allows to get a sense of how coachable they are, because let's say in the role play interview, we give them 2 opportunities to do the role play. The first opportunity ends, and then maybe they did so-so, but we can ask them, hey, how did you feel like you did? Did you do well? Did you not do well? Give us some of your own feedback, and then we can also give them our feedback. And then after the first role play, we can more or less just say, hey, before we go to the next role play, here are some of the suggestions that I have to give you. Here are some of the things that I thought you did well on. Here are some of the things that you probably could have improved on. And then you can actually see in real time their ability to take your feedback and immediately use it in their second round of the role play. Did they actually use your feedback and they were very coachable and they wanted to learn? Or were they very defensive and when you gave them feedback, they were saying, no, that doesn't make any sense, I did that right? Because you definitely don't want those types of people in your team either, right? So role play interviews, super, super awesome way in which you can actually evaluate sales talent and culture fit. So once you've passed multiple rounds of role plays, you should have a sense of, okay, who are the most qualified individuals for the task? And then the next step is once you've found a handful of people that you think are pretty good, they've crushed all the interviews, you can take them and put them into a test and a trial. And the reason why we like to do a trial is because we don't want to just give someone a full-time contract just because they performed well in an interview. Because I've learned this the hard way in my experience, in my career. Many people can interview well, but they'll still end up being bad at the job. So instead, you can just mitigate that risk by putting them into your organization for a week and just see how well they actually perform. So in that week, you'll test them out, you'll give them a little bit of training, but then you're really just looking at, are they punctual? Are they coachable? Are they diligent and willing to do the unsexy things like tracking their numbers and following up and using the CRM? And then you can look at their conversations, right? Are they actually communicating with prospects well? And are they at least improving over time? Because maybe on the first day they're not very good, and that's fine, but over time, are you seeing them get better through the week? And then finally, numbers are numbers, right? Sales is still a numbers game. So did they book meetings? Were they actually doing a good job? And you put a handful of setters into this trial, maybe 2 or 3, and the best one actually gets the job. And this is how you can actually optimize your ability to get the right person for the role. So finally, you want to make sure that you've set up a good long-term system in terms of your management process. So part of that is your compensation. Try to make sure that at the end of the month, if they're performing well, they're making at least $2,500. Once again, that's a combination of base plus commission, heavily weighted more so towards the commission side because we want them to be incentivized to work hard. And of course, they can make more if they perform really, really well. This is a full-time job after all, so we want them to be able to perform well. But then, in terms of the ongoing management, every single day we do daily huddles just to make sure that we understand their goals and that we understand what their action plans are for that day. And then every week we also try to make sure that we're reviewing their numbers, listening to their calls and looking at their conversations so that we can give feedback, potentially doing some role plays to practice with them so that they can improve their skill set, right? We want to even ask them, hey, what is your ideal career trajectory? Do you want to become a closer or a sales manager? And let's say they want to actually get promoted within 6 to 12 months, we can even put that as part of our overall management system, right? Like, hey, here are the steps of you getting to that promotion in 6 months. If you're able to achieve these goals, within 6 months, I can promote you. And this gives them an extra layer of incentive and motivation to perform well every single day. And it shows them that you actually care because you're not just trying to make them money, you're also looking out for their other goals, their career goals. And that means a lot to them. So if you build all this, what should you expect? Well, generally speaking, a setter should be able to generate 15 to 25x return on their investment. So let's say you spend $2,500 on a setter in a given month, they should be able to generate $35,000 to $50,000 worth of deals for you on their own. So it's a really, really solid ROI. Once again, assuming you have a higher ticket offer and you have sufficient lead flow. For our own business, actually, within the first 2 months of us hiring our first setter, we doubled to $60,000, which is really, really cool. And we've had many clients see similar results, right? We were able to help Fernando get from 0 to 100K per month. He deploys setters with his LinkedIn automation system. Christopher actually joined us also when he was at 0, and we were able to help him also scale to 6 figures per month. Manjeet, here's like literally an example of him within a week and a half of deploying his setter, able to book 20 calls, closing 2 of them. He hadn't actually jumped on all the calls yet, so I'm sure he eventually closed more. And he actually generates around like 65-ish, 70-ish a month right now, right? Ria, we gave her a team of setters. She's doing around 90 to 100K per month. So the list goes on and on, right? Travis, 30, Brent, 50 in 30 days. I'm not gonna bore you with all of these different numbers and case studies, but you get the idea. The system really does work. So how can we actually help? Well, my business, Attract and Scale, we actually have a product called the Setter Machine. And what we do here is we literally will find you your setter. We'll go through all the interviews and all the hiring process because frankly, you don't have the time to spend 2 months trying to find applications and banging out a bunch of Zoom call interviews. That's not only very time consuming, but because you've probably never done it before, you're gonna have a high probability of messing up and bringing on a bad person who will ultimately cost your business even more money. We know exactly how to do this because we've done this 100 times, and we're so confident that if our setters don't generate a return, we'll just guarantee the results and we'll give you your money back or we'll exchange you your setter. Not only that, we'll provide your setter all the training that they need because instead of you doing the training when you're once again busy or potentially you don't really know how to train your setter effectively, we've done it a lot and we're very good at it and we can take this off your plate. We'll also be able to build out your SOPs and your workflows for you because if you've never brought in a setter, you might lack a lot of the workflows, right? You might not know the softwares or the tools to use. You might not know how to set up the conversation trees. All that type of stuff we can pretty much deploy for you and save you a ton of time. And finally, we'll provide you additional coaching as needed because if you don't really understand sales ops or if you just have a lot of questions about how to best utilize your setter team or how to manage your setters, then that's obviously something that we're very, very good at, right? So that's more or less it. Please just book a call. I'll leave my link right below, and you can definitely hit us up if this is something that is interesting to you. And definitely, if you're a business owner and you've already built a somewhat successful business, but you're looking to scale to the next level, and you're having a lot of roadblocks, you're having a lot of bottlenecks, you're doing a lot of the things yourself, your lead generation isn't consistent, this is definitely something that could absolutely help you scale your business to the next level, all right? So with that being said, have a good one. Cheers.